we are now entering the next part of the program, which is hearing from cities around the world through a panel discussion. So, allow me first of all to introduce our panelists for the day. We have Laura Lucia Vieira, Seniviva, the Green and Environment Department, from the Green and Environment Department of the Municipality of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Had the pleasure of meeting Laura a long time ago in Sao Paulo, and it's great to see all of the good work that has been happening. We also have Eric Hubbard, Senior Advisor to the Mayor and Technical Advisor for the Freetown City Council in Sierra Leone. Very famous program. We have Ji Zhu, the Urban Shift Country Coordinator for China from the ICLE East Asia Secretariat. We also have Amy Boughtonhouse. I hope I got that right, Amy. Senior Manager of Urban Heat for C40, and Ben Hartley. Do you really Ben Hartley, Principal Specialist of the Energy Efficiency and on Energy Efficiency and Cooling of the SE for All. At the end of our discussion, we will also have receive remarks from Gregor Robertson, who is the champion for GCOM, Global Ambassador for the Global Covenant of Mayors and former Mayor of Vancouver. But first, to our panel. So I will be asking each of you 2 questions, and would like to kindly ask you to briefly respond to these questions. Let me start with you, Laura. Brazil is home to one of the richest biodiversities in the world. What do you see is the role of cities like Sao Paulo in protecting and restoring nature? And what efforts is the city implementing on nature at the moment?
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the interest. What I would say first is that São Paulo is in the biome Mata Atlântica, which is very different from the Cerrado, from the Pampas, from the Amazon. And my answer has connection to this situation. I mean, the biome where we are. Then we still have a very big biodiversity in our city. And if someone is interested, we have there in our website inventories from the last 40 years, I guess, of inventories of fauna and flora. And what we do then, first, territorial management. I mean, the city in the last 15 years has jumped from 32 parks to 111. What means that? This means to preserve the original vegetation that we had until now. And this is a lot, but it's not enough. I will tell you another information. I mean, 48% of the territory has vegetal coverage. I don't know, canopy is the word. I was looking for it. I didn't remember. Then this is a lot, but it's mostly concentrated in south and north, and then there's new parks that are being organized and implemented in the city. They try not only to give space for biodiversity, but also to offer environmental services to all parts of the territory. And we did, in the last 3 years, some plans. This is urban forestry, the Mata Atlântica general plan. We did urban forestry, Mata Atlântica, the environmental services, and a big and general plan for public and private ownership plan. And then what are we doing? We are doing to implement territories. We are trying to think how to walk on from this situation to the future. And I would say that regarding fauna, we did a very interesting service connecting wildlife management to stopping the advance of yellow fever. People from wild service located some infections, and then the vaccination team went to these parts of the territory to fight against yellow fever, and this has stopped it. Then these are examples from what we are doing regarding territorial management, fauna and flora. This is
That's really exciting, considering when we think of Sao Paulo, we see. Well, I've been there, and I just saw like really tall buildings. It changes the impression of people of Sao Paulo. Um, Now we move on to Freetown. So Eric, um, sorry, I want to have the right question. So Eric, the project Freetown the Tree Town seeks to restore critical forest cover, and by doing so, building resilience. So it's a narrative that you've been building for quite some time now. Can you tell us more about this, about the intervention, and how you are using digital tools in particular to accelerate and sustain action?
I can. Well, hello everyone. My name, again, it's Eric. I am an advisor to the mayor of Freetown, Ivana Kisoya, and so I also, sort of bring you her greetings. We in Freetown, it is a space of 1.2 to 1.5 million people. Yeah, and I say that because it fluctuates in the day, in the evenings, right? People come into the space and then they go back into the sort of outside of the city where they live during the evening. And so within that context, we have a spatial dynamic where we have 74 informal settlements. They are on the coast and they're in the hills. We have a unplanned development dynamic in the city that has sort of swelled the population and the number of buildings, where we have lost about 500, we are losing about 555 trees, hectares of trees per year. And we have been doing so since 2011. The context is that the city is continuing to grow, and the level of deforestation has also been growing. And we're at an inflection point where we've needed to do something, because as a result of that, sort of the impacts of climate change, the regular flooding, the landslides, the extreme heat, all of those dynamics have come upon the city and have created massive challenges. And so when the mayor came into office, the idea was to think about how can we address this and how can we do it in a very bold way. And so one of the initiatives is the Freetown to Tree Town initiative, and that is to plant and grow 1 million trees in the city over a period of 3 years, 3 rainy seasons, which is our planting period. This was in 2020. So as of right now, we have planted 850,000 trees.
Wow.
We're just shy of our 1 million goal. Right? But the thing is this, we as a city, do not and will not plant trees. The trees were planted and are being grown by communities. So we set up a process whereby sort of even the context for understanding where those trees should be planted was a part of a co-design and co-created process. So the first level of planting was around risk reduction, right? So the idea was in the upper hills where the city has expanded to, there's a context for a major incidence of landslides. So we worked, sort of with our scientists to build out a geomorphic analysis to understand sort of where the shifting points are in those spaces, the destabilization within those slopes. And so within the context of that, those are the places in those areas where we did planting. And this was done in conjunction with sort of a deep kind of risk assessment and a bit of participatory budgeting around particular types of activities through the community that could be done. So the idea is that the design of the planting was done with the community, but the whole context was never about planting. It was about growing. And so if we are going to grow trees, right, then we have to look at the trajectory of that process, and we have to cost in those dynamics. And we have to build that in, sort of to community growth. So now we're talking about circularity, and we're talking about a green circular economy. So around this process, we began to build out sort of how we can actually then inject both green, sort of ecological infrastructure, right, and livelihood dynamics within the context of this space, and then open up pathways for adaptation. And so within that, how do we do it? Yeah. So the issue is that we looked at how we can use disruptive technology, and link the disruptive technology to our disruptive people in our communities. So the idea is that linking folks up with particular types of technology. So the idea then is if you plant a tree, then we want a digital footprint of every tree. So we had 74 planting sites across the city, across the 13 catchment areas that make up the whole western area of Sierra Leone. A part of that area is Freetown. The outside portion of it is the rural district council. But we're intertwined. All of the water for the municipality sits up there, within the context of the watershed. So we looked at risk reduction. So we're reducing flooding, we're reducing landslides, but we were also having water shortages because the types of development has moved into our watershed. And the sediment, sort of is getting into the dam. We've got about 7 years before we run out of water if we don't do something. So within the context of those 1 million trees, we've dedicated so far about 350,000 of those trees are in the green belt around the dam, specifically to restore, sort of the watershed areas. Then a specific amount were in kind of forest trees within the context of the sloped areas. Then we looked at street trees because we're very interested, sort of in dealing with, sort of creating cooling corridors, right? And then we have this whole blue carbon dynamic that's a part of it, and that's our mangrove restoration process. So within the context of the 1 million trees, and you will see very quickly, 1 million is no near enough in terms of what we need to do, but it's bold enough for us to start. So the issue, and I'll wrap up just a little bit, on how we actually do it. So the idea is you plant a tree, you track a tree. Then we verify that tree, and we have a team of data techs, and we have a system that we've built, right, that allows us to be able to do that. And so once we actually verify the tree, the grower, who is in one of those 72 communities, in and around those trees, will receive 1.2 million leones. They receive resources. And we link up the process of those resources and the receipt of those resources over a period of time. We planted in 2020, we planted in 2021, we planted in 2022, but our growth trajectory is up to 2030. And so we have to be able to continue to sort of replenish those resources so they can circulate back into the community, create that circularity. So one of the things that we've done in terms of using the digital tools, it's not only the digital tool to get the imprint, sort of the footprint of the tree, but what we also do is we attach what we call a token ID to each tree. And within the concept of that token ID, it allows us to tokenize the tree. And so we put a value on it. And we go into the market, into corporate partnerships. And we have a number in the pipeline where we're now linking impact owners to our trees. And so we're using sort of a social corporate responsibility ESG context, right? For those large corporations that have made net zero pledges, to be able to link, to our city and to our trees and to our communities. And then the resources that are invested there go back into the growth of the trees. And we are moving into the carbon market. So within the context of 100,000 trees that we've just planted this year, we're moving that, we've registered under the Vera standard and the CCB standard to sort of move into a process of bringing carbon credit, to finance the long-term growth of those trees. But the idea here is around creating an investment model within our natural capital that allows us to be able to create circularity within the context of the growth and the restoration of that capital, sort of through partnerships with communities where those resources go back into communities and finance long-term ecological, urban ecological, networked urban ecological infrastructure that will allow for us to sort of build sustainable and equitable adaptation pathways. Thank you.
Sounds fantastic. Thank you, Eric. That was fantastic. We now move to Ji Shu, Urban Shift Country Coordinator for China. Ji, thank you so much for coming. He's very busy because today is both Restoration Day and China Day, and he's doing a lot of things in the city's pavilion for China. So thank you for your time. My question for you is the following. China is home to an astounding variety of ecosystems. What are some of the challenges that cities in China are facing, and how is ICLEI supporting these efforts?
Hello, hello everyone. It's G, and thank you so much for having me here. I mean, I'm glad to be here and to meet with you and to discuss on this topic. So I'm from the ICLEI Asia Secretariat, and I'm based in Beijing, and also and then, as we can see in China now, just like other cities, we also have the city disease such as air pollution and also the traffic jam and the greenhouse gas, and also the goals towards the sustainable development. Pretty much like other cities, we all facing such issues. And also one big takeaway from the Mr. Eric is like also China really play a lot of emphasis on how to change some like our previous appropriate the ways to treat the environment, trying to build a green and also to a more sustainable and resilient the environment. But the problem is like we know how to we know that we should do it. Doesn't really mean that we can. So more importantly, it's about the ways, the approaches and the practice that we are going to take. Just take like a plant tree as a really quite a simple example. Actually, it involves a lot of work and also technical the things that we need. So that's exactly the ICLEI as the world one of the largest the city nature works for sustainable development. That's also what we are doing in China and also around all of the world. And we have in total 24 offices around the world. And my office is based in Beijing, and we also our regional office is based in Seoul. So we really wanted to use our global nature work to help Chinese cities to do the capacity building and also provide the technical support and also some tools such as for financing and the Singapore Urban Diversity Index and other basic practice from our amazing partners are doing around the world, both of them into China, and hopefully that to make them digest and develop their own tools. So one example that I can tell is, so we are doing a nature work called East Asia Clean Air Cities. So as you can as you may know, that most of Chinese cities, we are really have this problem of air pollution. So we wanted to take advantage of other developed countries in East Asia, such as in Japan and also in the South Korea, to bring what they are doing in their cities to back to China. So this network is a flagship and also platform program that we do to help cities address air pollution challenge and explore the co-benefits of clean air and low carbon development. So we have built a network of 10 local governments and 12 partners, including in Beijing, Guiyang, Jinan, Shenzhen, Sichuan province, and also Tokyo in Japan, so in South Korea, of course. So we do a lot of event activities and also research projects and to help they learn from each other and to conduct measures towards the air pollution. So and also, just like Charlotte have mentioned, because our ICLEI as the one of the organizer for the city summit for the subnational government and also cities, we really wanted to use such a global platform to and also one thing to add that we have successfully invited like around 10 cities from the China, bring them to Montreal to participate this our summit. And so we wanted to use this a really good opportunity. And we even have a China Day for today, specifically to demonstrate and showcase the local biodiversity actions happening in China by cities and also the Virus International Organization. So the goal that we are doing this stuff is trying to connect China more to the rest of the world, and so that we can learn more from each other. So that's the most one of the priority and the most important thing that we feel like that due to the Chinese cities and help them can have achieved the sustainable development goals, especially the like China are doing the really a lot of work on the low carbon, and we have the the double carbon goals to achieve the carbon neutrality by 2030 and also by 2060. Sorry, so that's what we feel like I wanted to contribute to this strategy and to their work. So, thank you.
Thank you, G. Now I turn to Amy. Amy, C40 is turning to nature as a means to achieve climate objectives. And you have just launched the Urban Nature Accelerator. Can you tell us about this ongoing effort, how C40 cities are tapping into nature-based solutions for healthier and cooler communities?
I'm so happy to be here and honored to be with my esteemed colleagues on this panel. So C40 cities have been working for many years with urban nature, specifically for cooling, which is what we're exploring today. C40 has the Cool Cities Network, which is a network of around 40 cities that have been working together and sharing ideas on cooling. And urban nature is certainly the most common and popular solution that cities are exploring to reduce urban heat island effect. It's really in the last few years that we've started to explore how to quantify our goals around urban nature. And we did this through the Urban Nature Accelerator, which is a set of commitments to essentially increase the amount of and access to nature in C40 cities. So 38 cities have signed on, including Montreal here and Freetown. And there are a few different goals that cities are pursuing. I would say about half of the 38 cities that have signed on really identified cooling as their primary goal in terms of increasing access to nature. And then the remaining are focusing on flood risk. And because we're at COP15, I want to connect this accelerator to Target 12, which I haven't heard as much discussion as I thought I would have on Target 12. So I want to talk about it a little bit. Target 12, of course, is the target in the Global Diversity Framework to increase green and blue space in cities. And this is a very important target. It's exciting that this target is mostly cleaned up as far as I understand in the negotiations, but there isn't a specific quantitative goal associated with this target. So I hope that the Urban Nature Accelerator is an intervention that can help with that aspect of the implementation of the global biodiversity framework. So I'll just tell you what those targets are as part of the Urban Nature Accelerator. So cities have to commit to one of two goals. The first is to achieve 30 to 40% of the city being green or blue space. And that's really, again, addressing climate risk, so making cities cooler or more resilient to flood. And then the second target is about access to nature, because we've heard again and again from cities that it's not just about the quantity of nature that we have, but also the accessibility of that nature across communities. So the second target is achieving 70% of residents in the city being able to walk within 15 minutes to a high quality green or blue space. And Freetown is doing really exciting work that Eric has already shared. Paris and Athens as well come to mind as cities who are really using nature as infrastructure to address cooling. So it's about quantity, it's about access, but it's also about quality of nature, and that's the connection with biodiversity, and we're here at COP15. So one of the things that C40 is doing with some of our cities is exploring the concept of urban rewilding as a way to produce high quality biodiverse nature that also provides the benefits of cooling or heat or flood resilience in cities. Urban rewilding really is a holistic approach to restore natural habitats and their processes in urban spaces, and working towards a state of human-nature coexistence. And there are so many cities doing this in a really interesting way. I'll just name a couple. Dhaka North has been using urban nature to really increase access to the many people who are in this very quickly growing city, and through biodiversity. So by adding a number of parks and including playgrounds within these parks that are high quality biodiverse spaces. Durban and Delhi, there's so many other examples that I could give. So really there are a lot of global south cities that are really leading in increasing high quality biodiverse spaces right in cities. I think I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thanks, Amy. Lots of wonderful examples from C40 cities. We now move on to Ben Hartley, who works for SE4All. SE4All is a very cool partner of our Cool Coalition, and we've been working very closely together on this work. What's also interesting is, if you can, Ben, is the connection between energy and nature. So could you tell us more about the relevance of nature as part of the sustainable energy transition and how financing can take that into account?
Yeah, I mean, so I think I'll answer that in two parts. One is sort of to give the background on cooling and SE4All, and the second to talk a little bit about the Nature for Cool Cities Challenge that we recently launched with the Cool Coalition. So yeah, my name is Ben Hartley. I'm from Sustainable Energy for All. We work on SDG 7, which is access to electricity, clean cooking, renewable energy, and energy efficiency. And as part of that work, we work also on this issue of access to cooling. And we work to elevate it as not just a climate issue, not just an energy issue, but a development issue, because it really is becoming an issue of equity as the world warms. I think in 2019, about 359,000 people died due to extreme heat, a number that was, I think it was previously estimated at about 12,000. So it's extreme heat, it's thermal comfort in schools, it's access to agricultural cold chains, medical cold chains that deliver vaccines. And there's a series of different types of cooling access risks. And with the sort of scale of cooling needs that need to be filled, there's a huge energy challenge. So not only in terms of delivering sufficient access to sustainable energy to power some cooling solutions, not all, of course, but also, this issue of growing energy demand for cooling. And if it's met with fossil fuels or inefficient solutions, it's going to increase emissions and be a major climate problem. So It's a big challenge. There's a lot of different types of risk, and there are a lot of different types of solutions. I think, we have research at SE for All. It's our Chilling Prospects Report series. And we estimate that across about 54 high-impact countries for access to cooling, there are about 1.2 billion people who are at high risk, which is this high risk due to a lack of access to cooling, which means that their immediate health and safety is at risk because of extreme heat and a lack of access to cooling. Now, out of that 1.2, about 800 million of them live in cities. So it's a very big and very serious challenge for cities that are heating up. And within our program, we try to focus on the needs of folks in the global south. And I think here, we think about cooling a lot in terms of air conditioners and devices, at least in the energy community. When SE for All and others, including the Cool Coalition, are trying to shift this conversation around cooling towards nature-based solutions. So I think we're coming at it from a different starting point and trying to meet in the middle with a lot of the folks that are here today. And I've heard a few years ago, actually, someone said to me that trees are nature's air conditioner. And when we think about cooling, we shouldn't be thinking about necessarily it being an air conditioner in every house. That may be the solution for some, but we have to think about cooling needs holistically and how we can meet those most sustainably. And for SE for All, at least, and a number of others, one of the first order solutions is passive cooling, and reducing the need for cooling and energy needs for cooling by maximizing passive cooling. And it's been proven that urban nature is one of the most effective ways of doing that, not only in terms of reducing the energy need, but also providing life-saving protection from extreme heat and reducing the urban heat island effect that envelops cities. So we have recently partnered with the Cool Coalition, a number of actors within it, to launch a new initiative called the Nature for Cool Cities Challenge. It was launched at the Climate COP a few weeks ago, and it builds on some success that we've had in the cooling community with challenges and pilots. There was one dedicated to cool roofs, where 10 teams worked on implementing cool roofs and helped develop markets and supply chains in those markets. And it builds on the success of cities like Medellin and Freetown in implementing nature-based solutions because of that has cooling benefits. So I want to get this right. So what we are asking for in this challenge is for cities to make a commitment. First, a pledge, which is by 2030 and with demonstrable progress by 2025, I'll get this right, increase or enhance the proportion of nature-based cooling solutions within built-up surface city area. So it's a relatively open target. We want it to be open and accessible to any different type of city, and we want it to sort of go global. So it's a good commitment to make. It can feed into the next CBD COP, into the next climate COP, but we want it to be backed up with implementation actions. So with quantitative and funding targets, quantitative goals, funding targets, and implementation actions. Now, one of the next big steps for us in this challenge is to provide an award, which is what I was sort of describing with the Million Cool Cities Challenge, for cities in the global south that demonstrate high ambition but may not have the resources to implement these types of actions. And so the idea is that we can use this challenge to support these cities from that perspective with technical assistance, resources, implementation support, and communication support to enable them to do this so that we can sort of demonstrate a model and hopefully pilot it into the future. I can talk more about this, but this is a partner-driven initiative. I just want to, shout out to C40, who's here today, Clay, RMI, the Cool Coalition, WRI, a number of others who have contributed to this, and we look forward to taking it forward with them into 2023. Thank you.